Okay, excellent. Good evening, folks. It's the 30th of October, the eve of Halloween Eve, and we have a very special guest lined up for this evening. It actually came together today, pretty last minute. Mr. Brad Johnson, former CIA agent, Central Intelligence Agency chief of station at various stations around the world for the United States government. He'll be joining us in a few minutes here, along with Deep Journo, aka George Webb. I will add Deep Journo to the title, but you guys see him in the flesh here. He's not a cutout.
No, not a cutout. Yeah, Brad Johnson should be fun to talk to. I thought he was a station chief in Africa. We'll see. We obviously are an Africa-based news agency, so it's always good to find out who's spying on or who was. And of course, we talk a lot about Libya and Syria, so that'll be interesting with Brad. I remember I thought Glenn Greenwald or somebody back at the Intercept did a thing about the footprint in Africa with AFRICOM. There we go. Looks like somebody's trying to come in.
Yeah, we'll just wait till he gets his camera connected.
But AFRICOM split off from EUCOM. EUCOM's where all the people in our story, Buttigieg and all the other NATO folks are. And then they split off AFRICOM, but they get Libya done before AFRICOM splits off as its own command. I thought AFRICOM was based in Kenya, and there was another big substation or station in Cairo. So that'd be interesting to ask him how all that transition occurred, if he was still in the CIA at that point. I think that was around 2011, 2012.
This is going to be really fun, George, because your knowledge is, you're going to fill in a lot of gaps here, question-wise, hopefully. So
yeah. I have a lot of questions about it. I have a lot of questions.
You got some interview duties tonight.
Yeah, that's fine. That's good because
you're used to being the interviewee.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that this is the crux of the further you get out toward the third world. I think the more fun and games, as it were, that the CIA participates in. You can't really do mining and oil deals in like New York, or maybe you can. Maybe you can surreptitiously do mining and oil deals in Los Angeles underneath the Getty Museum or whatever. But if you're in Africa, you're a long way away from the action, and you can get away with a lot. Look at hello, yes, you can get away with an awful lot. So the fun and games, the special activities division of the CIA, that covert group tends to do a lot more in Africa or Middle East or Central Asia. And hello from Slovenia.
And we got the Entropy link is in the live chat, people. If you want to go on Entropy for super chats or uncensored chat, please make use of that. You can watch our stream via the Entropy link. As I said, no brand new tube tonight, but we'll go again tomorrow, and we'll be sure to mirror this on other channels as well. Joining shortly by former CIA Chief of Station Brad Johnson. I talked to Mr. Johnson about a month ago, about 5 weeks ago, right before I left for the East Coast, actually. So I'm interested to see what he has to say in election week. We are in election week, and yeah.
And Eddie was communicating with him today, and just before the show, I saw he would send us a message. So he's just trying to get set up here technically. But what I'm particularly interested in is this division in the CIA between the analyst side and the sort of what they call the direct action side. And direct action is more the Peter Strzok Sr. kind of, we're going to choose this tribe to take over the country, and then we're going to do election operations over here, and we're going to bring in the weapons from over there, and here's how we're going to do air cover from this radical group over there. So all these things, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of, obviously Al-Qaeda was there in Sudan, was the birthplace of the Al-Qaeda effort with Osama bin Laden. Of course, he probably ended up working for Kofor Black at one point. because you can't say counterterrorism in Africa without saying Code for Black. So there's a lot of questions for Brad Johnson tonight.
Yeah, we were talking about Code for Black earlier this evening as well. So it's really great to have this kind of bridge between public and government intelligence, right?
Yeah. So other questions I've got is pipelines, clearing of pipelines. Of course, Hillary Clinton had that big, looks like he's trying to get in.
Let's see if I can pull him in here. Can you hear us, Brad? Mr. Johnson?
Yep, there I hear. There he is.
Excellent. Comms okay there, Mr. Johnson? 5x5 check.
Might need to unmute his microphone.
Okay.
Sorry, not getting.
Having some trouble
He
here
said
with
not getting through.
connection, folks, and what's going on.
I hope that's not our connection.
I don't know. I think we're streaming okay, George. Let us know if you guys can hear us okay. We're in 1080p right now here at the home base neighborhood news hour studios at the Swing State Studios.
We had him for a second there.
We did. We lost him. We're having trouble connecting with Brad Johnson, former CIA.
You guys sound fine.
Okay, so Andy just gave us a feedback check, and we are good on the audio and video. So just gotta be patient.
Look good, but
Andy says he doesn't know if we look good, but we sound good. So
Yeah. Well, I'll keep the camera on Eddie if that's going to be how we're going to do it. But no, we'll give it another go here. I believe he's written a book. I can't remember if what the title is. I thought I saw a Brad Johnson book.
he can be found at intelreform.org if people want to check his website out. He's also on Twitter at Americans Reform as well. I follow him there. But Americans for Intelligence Reform is who he is a part of, and his website again is intelreform.org.
Maybe we can just have him call in if he's got a bandwidth problem and just be on the phone.
Yeah.
Because I think he might be overwhelmed a little bit with the bandwidth. I don't know if he's trying again.
Okay, so he's back in the lobby. Just be patient with us, people. We got a sweet one lined up for you here. So 5x5 here in flyover country. Thank you for that, Miss Bevan. Hi from Slovenia once again. And to anybody listening around the world, I got someone from Australia as well, and our Americans are hearing us just fine. Shout out to any Englanders as well who may be tuning in.
Do you have to? Oh, I see.
Yeah, just waiting for him to connect here, folks. Got a little connection issues, so
He may be in some remote area. I thought he was in the United States, but we'll see.
yeah, I think he's in. I actually don't know where he is, but I thought he was USA based as well. But you can see a stream we did earlier. Actually, was that last night or
That was this morning that we
was
did
this
that.
morning that we did?
We never leave this Swing State newsroom, so we all the things start running together after a while.
Yeah, we lose track of our broadcast here, but we did a fireside chat the other night. And those who don't know, our neighborhood news hour studio did get terminated.
Here we go.
Can you hear us all there? Okay, there, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you.
Say it one more time, Mr. Johnson. Not very well. We can't hear you. Do you want to try just with your microphone and let's see if we can get audio?
why don't you just tell them to call it?
Yeah, or maybe we can just call in, have him call in.
We could do a call in too.
Do you want to just grab the phone? Yeah, just
This is a unique problem, folks. We haven't had this one before.
we haven't, but
You know, these things happen.
Yeah.
When you're independent media network.
There he is.
There's Mr. Johnson. Hopefully he can hear. Okay.
Can you hear? Oh, jeez, almost.
Shoot, man. Let's Well, it seems like everybody else can hear us okay.
Hey, Andy.
Just doing a speed test check here. If people have questions for George or Mr. Brad Johnson of the CIA formerly, please put them in the live chat. Again, the Entropy live stream chat is also in the live chat. People want to do super chats.
Oh, it's almost 100 megabits a second. That we got great download speed. I don't know about. I think our upload's pretty good. Yeah, it could be that we have some friends.
In high places.
Well, I don't know. It seems like we're having an awful lot of problems. The first time we talked to a CIA guy who's got a little bit of juice, we start having connection problems.
They're really making the fans work anticipate this one, aren't they, George? Whoever they are.
732. What's the three middle?
734-224-709.
Can you just write that really quick? So I believe Brad is a big proponent that the CIA isn't beyond help. I believe he is strongly in the camp of it can be reformed. You want to send him an email with that number?
Yeah, okay.
And if Mr. Johnson, if you're listening, we'd just like you to dial in for right now. It's 734-224-7090.
Yeah, and fans, don't call in, please. Just so Mr. Johnson can call in if needed. I will email this to him as well. This is
We're sorry we had to go on at the same time as McDuff. I didn't know about this until we were eating about half an hour ago, and I said, "Oh wow, I'd love to be a part of that interview." And so, sorry for the late planning here, and we didn't mean to step on McDuff's show.
Of course not. We love our McDuff, Kennedy's man. To Smash the CIA. It's a book written by George Webb. If people want to check it out, you can check him on Amazon.com. I've read the books. Very, very good book. Condensed writer George's. He's actually rewriting the books next week.
Yeah.
And we want to try to have a book signing here too, sometime in the near future. But,
yeah, I'm rewriting a 1 Minutes to Midnight because there's so much that's happened that has confirmed a lot of the things in 1 Minutes to Midnight. A lot of things that people say I didn't prove are now given as fact with Bob Ulinsky. Here he's going to try again to come in.
I'm going to try something, folks. You might see a slight drop, but we'll it should reconnect pretty soon here.
If you want to take us down to one camera, I don't know. That may help.
I don't know if that'll help, George. Let me try, though.
See if that'll work, though. I'm just wondering if we're getting throttled by StreamYard.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear us, Mr. Johnson? I don't know if we are. I just paid for the professional plan today.
Oh, I hear something. Mr. Johnson, can you hear us?
Okay.
There it is. Okay. Hey, Andrew, come here and put the speaker on, Andrew. Okay. Hello, this is George.
Hi, Brad Johnson here.
Hey, Brad. This is George Webb in Michigan here with Addy Ads. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical trouble.
Yeah, we've had, we're just catching the edge of the hurricane that kind of passed through. It's over us now, so unfortunately it's playing havoc with everything here.
Okay, you're in Louisiana then?
No, actually, I'm just outside of Washington, D.C., so hanging around the hill a lot. So I think it's a concentration of kind of evil powers underneath the ground, combined with the storm doing a double whammy.
Okay, I'm have been in Cobb Island, and the last month I've been here in the swing states of Ohio and Michigan. Are you down that way? Is Cobb Island getting hit pretty good?
No, just no. We're here in Washington D.C. It's just stormy and windy. It's not like hurricane weather or anything. It's just hugely overcast.
Yeah, just if you turn down your speaker, then let's see. I guess.
Yeah, so just turn down your computer speaker, Mr. Johnson, just so there's no feedback. We can hear you just fine on the phone. Looks like people can hear your voice just fine. So if we can just do I guess just make this a phone call interview.
And we'll follow up again when there isn't inclement weather. But we've looked at your bio, and we know you were a station chief with CIA at a couple of different places around the world. I didn't know if you were on the analysis side or the sort of what I call the direct action side. But if you want to just give us a quick thumbnail sketch of your bio, that would be great for starters.
Sure. Yeah, my background was on the operations side. Generally speaking, are you hearing me okay? There's real feedback issues here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I can hear you fine. Yep.
Okay, good. All better. My research was 100% in the operations end of things, which is the espionage arm of the CIA traditionally. I would say you can more or less divide it. This is way oversimplification, but you can more or less divide it between the analysis and the operations for purposes of our discussion. And the analysis was traditionally done here in the United States, where they would be, at the center of the web, if you will, and intelligence from everybody. Every place they could get it and sit and have access to all the resources that were available to them here in the Washington D.C. area. Overseas, traditionally to have been a station, you would have come out of the operations end of things, and so that was my background. We did, the espionage and covert action and all that sort of stuff was done by the operations cadre traditionally. Now those lines have blurred.
Okay.
Today of the CIA is that they've under John Brennan. During the president of the administration, they dissolved the operations cadre, so it no longer exists as a separate area of endeavor inside the CIA, and now it's a kind of a one size fits all. Everybody does everything, and so they've kind of destroyed the capability that went there, going to a new concept of dealing with our foreign partners. So you can look at it as if that what we used to do ourselves, we now do in a partnership with other countries. So of course that's kind of self-defeating, because in intelligence, you want intelligence to be all yours and nobody else's, and nobody to know what you know or don't know, because if you partner up with X country, how do you know that the Chinese don't have penetrations in entry service, or the Russians, or the Iranians, or anybody else? And if they have penetrations of that service, then they know what you know, and they know when you know it, and they know who's telling you, and maybe they could put stuff into that information that's false and things like that. So it's one of those things that once you partner up with another country, you lose control over who knows about what you're doing and not doing, and what you know and don't know. So that's I would say in a nutshell kind of my criticism of the way that the CIA has gone today. And unfortunately, at this juncture, nobody's doing anything about it. So
my impression is that you were in Africa for some reason. I always think of the Cairo station. I always think of the Nairobi station in Kenya. But please disabuse me of my impressions if you were in different parts of the world.
Well, I was not in. I've been to those two places that you mentioned, but not station and not working. And I do try to be very cautious of what I say, specifically of my background, so I don't go through the list of the places I've served. But I can't say this, that I had a 25-year career with the CIA, and of that 25 years, almost 20 years of it was overseas. So I spent vast majority of my time with the CIA overseas doing what we do. So was good at it, enjoyed it, and had a lot of fun.
Well, let me, you mind if I, so you a station chief, you have people coming and going, a lot of top secret folks, a lot of, I would guess you were during some of your career was the Cold War, when Russia was still the Soviet Union, and then China is obviously the other big one. Would you say your activities included counter-espionage activity against both of the two biggies there, Russia and China?
Well, yes. I mean, there is some there's, I mean, it depends on how you use the terms. Different agencies involved with this use it a little bit differently. So for me, counter-espionage with fighting against Russia and China, for example, the two you mentioned, those counter-espionage efforts would, generally speaking, be done here in the United States by the FBI, because what that term would mean under those circumstances is that China and Russia are here trying to recruit a reporting source, say, at the Pentagon or at CIA headquarters or at State Department or Department of Energy or something like that. So the FBI would be trying to stop them from recruiting somebody that an American who's going to report back to them. So in that sense, no, I didn't do counter-espionage in that way. That, as I said, generally speaking, would be here in the U.S. and generally speaking be handled by the FBI. Now, where you could make the argument that I was involved in that sort of thing is, of course, we're always looking at what the Chinese do overseas and the Russians, what they do overseas. And, of course, we're always trying to do the same to them. We're always trying to recruit a Russian reporting source or a Chinese reporting source so that they can tell me what the Chinese are up to or what the Russians are up to. So in that sense, yes, that way we could learn what they were up to and if they had any successes against us. So if you were to include that in your definition of counterespionage, then definitely yes, I was involved.
Okay. Well, historically, I think of things like, I don't know if you're familiar with megatons to megawatts, but 20,000 Russian nuclear warheads that need to be dismantled and downblended, the uranium, highly enriched uranium downblended, and then brought back to the United States for use in our power facilities and so forth. There's a lot of overseas, I would imagine, satellite work, human intelligence work, to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in these diplomatic agreements, that sort of thing. Or is there's counterintelligence against people like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, terrorist activities, or the most recent one we see is this whole thing with Hunter Biden being involved, and maybe Joe Biden and James Biden as well, in a nuclear deal with China Nuclear Group. Take any one of those you want to pick.
Yeah, now, in CIA terms, traditionally, that's not counterespionage, that's foreign intelligence, because we're out overseas trying to figure out what they're doing. So we would have viewed that as foreign intelligence, which, is a proactive thing. You go try and find out about it. Yeah, so, I mean, the United States as a whole was, and the CIA would certainly be interested and involved in every bit of all of that stuff. I mean, weaponry was always a big deal. What, as you said, the dismantling of the nuke and what happened to the materials, and are we being treated honestly, and all of that, and digging into the cave here, what's in that cave, and what hidden production is there. All of that's constantly be after, but as I say, from the perspective of the CIA, that would be counted as foreign intelligence versus the CIA counterintelligence or counterespionage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you had, it sounds like, several decades with the agency.
Yeah, 25-year career, yes.
Yeah, and so as far as interfacing with other people that we would know, famous people we would know, back at Langley, would you have had some Langley time in your tour of duty as well?
Well, certainly as the chief of station, as a chief of station, you're back for different conferences, and there's annual meetings that different areas would have where they'd meet with the chiefs of station and stuff, so that you can stay apprised of things going on. And you'd make the rounds, go to the Hill, director, deputy director. You'd meet with those guys at the agency. And once you get as a chief of station, you generally meet leadership back at headquarters consistently, and they also make trips overseas. So depending on where you are and what you're doing, you would often see leadership overseas too. These aren't, it's not something that's, given out 2 weeks in advance and everybody knows the travel plans, but, it's common knowledge that those people take trips and they'll go out and meet the leaders of that country's intelligence, and there's always a lot of coordination and talk back and forth, and so there would be travel by leadership overseas and by chiefs of station to headquarters.
Yeah. And you have on your website and so forth, sort of a redeeming message that the CIA sort of needs to be reformed, but it doesn't need to be completely dismantled. Can you talk a little bit about that and what leads you to believe that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, destroying what is the CIA would be foolhardy. I mean, we can't go out into the world blind. But I would say in the early days, certainly during my career, the CIA was at a point where essentially we, as far as intelligence goes, by ourselves could take on the entire world and go toe to toe in intelligence means. And we were capable of just basically facing everybody down all at the same time. Now, of course, we had our allies and things like that that were reliable and could help, and those things as well. So we always had a pretty big advantage in intelligence. And most of the rest of the world, I know that Chinese do a lot now, and Russians were have always been respected, and even little countries like Cuba could be very active and successful in intelligence. So I mean, what I say is that we need to go back to the methodologies that made us great, where we had huge successes. Where now, I mean, it's kind of failure after failure. The number of successes are going down, and a lot of it goes to the philosophy that's in charge now. That's what I mentioned early on was implemented in what John Brennan called the modernization, and part of that modernization was the dissolution of the operations cadre. The problem with that is that I think many people will remember Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf. He was the commander of the first Iraq War, if you will, and in that he made a comment just in passing. It was in a news interview that he was giving. And he made a comment in passing. One of the reasons that the U.S. military, the Army specifically, he was referring to was so good is because of the combat colonels. And he made a point that it takes 20 years to build a completely effective full-service combat colonel. And it's precisely the same thing. It's precisely the same process for precisely the same reasons that it takes 20 years to build a fully effective chief of station that can be overseas and run all the operations, run all the junior officers, and knows how to do everything. So that's a pipeline of 20 years to get to that guy that then can be overseas to run the operations successfully. But if you don't have that pipeline anymore, and you don't have an operations cadre, you can never achieve that level again. So the expertise and the capabilities and even a lot of the training, all that stuff is dying off. It's going away. And as my generation dies, that expertise goes with us. And you just can't have a system where analysts or whoever can bid for any job anywhere and they get them. And, they'll go get a 2-week course and then go off overseas or whatever, stuff like that. This one-size-fits-all destroys that expertise that is only developed over a long period of time. It's like any job, it's one of those things that after, if you're good at it, spend 20 years at it, you're getting training and experience and all of that, you're going to be much better at it when it's something, particularly that's something so complex. And human intelligence, espionage, is not something that just anyone can do. It's very difficult. It has its dangers. It's just there's only a very small percentage of people that can be any good at it to begin with, and you have to train and nurture those people to be really good at it and be really professional. So that is where I would say, to suggest getting rid of the CIA, I think is, very foolhardy. I would actually use stronger terms in private company, but I think that would just be, foolishness. But what we do need to do is reform in the sense and go to those tactics that were so successful, that saved so many lives, and just created so many successes through the decades that now we just no longer achieve. We can't operate at those levels anymore, and it's that dependence on our foreign partners versus dependence on self. And I would say that's it. We need to go to dependence on self And while we always want to talk to our foreign partners, our foreign liaison services, those intelligence agencies from all those other countries, we want to talk to them and have a relationship with them and cooperate whenever possible. But we don't want to depend on that. And that's, as I say, it's just taking us down a rabbit hole that's foolish. But I think it goes back to John Brennan, who was the one that implemented all of this. And John Brennan was a frustrated analyst that flunked out of the CIA and left and went off to the Hill to become a bureaucrat. And it was only through his bureaucratic connections that, as an apparatchik, just this bureaucrat guy, that he was able to come back and end up being director. So there were a lot of faults within the man, and he was completely over his head. And it's one of the problems where you pick somebody to go into a position that's just so important to the national security of the United States of America, like the CIA director. When you put somebody in that's politically reliable but operationally incompetent, this is what you get. And that was the problem. That was what happened. And we haven't recovered enough to the point where we've put somebody in that knows what's to be done and has a mind to fix it. And so it's a big uphill push. It's going to be difficult, but it is something that could be done. It just can't be done with who's there. You'll have to bring in a different type of person to take over and run the thing, and they'll need some help. So that's the issue.
Well, let's just take a kind of a convenient dividing line of 2000 or 9/11, and obviously would probably be considered an intelligence failure, and then also the Iraq War shortly following thereafter. Are you saying that things got worse after 9/11 or worse after 2011? Or what would you say the waterfall moment was, if you can be so candid?
Well, I think describing both of those, the Iraq War and the 9/11 as intelligence failures, I think is misleading. I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of the problem. The problem is political. The things that made intelligence not coordinate and not share as well as they could were politically driven. Those were decisions made by the President of the United States, and Bill Clinton at the time. He purposely set about to divide and keep the intelligence channel separate, say particularly when this is what people so often talk about, is the FBI and the CIA not sharing enough intelligence. Well, those were purposeful decisions made by the administration of the United States. The president it wasn't something that the FBI and CIA wanted to do. Those were the orders they were given and they followed. So, yes, there was an obvious failure in the sense that there wasn't enough coordination. And if somebody had been sitting there putting all those pieces together, they could have maybe figured out what type of thing was going on. But that, like I said, that wasn't because that's what the FBI and CIA wanted. That's because that was what the administration wanted. So, it's okay, granted, intelligence could have been handled better, but who made that decision? The president. So, the Iraq War, same thing. Now, of course, that was the Bush administration now at this point. But I think what the president decided at the time was he needed to do something. And so Iraq was something that was definable, that could be done, and I think that's why he chose to do it. Now, I don't think that was a particularly strong decision, but that wasn't intelligence-driven again. That was politically driven by the then President Bush, who made that decision. So, as I said, to repeat, in both of those instances, it's easy to point at Intel and say, oh, you guys screwed up, but I think that's misleading. It's just not factual to suggest that those decisions were made within the intelligence community. Those were made at the presidential level. So, what do? You salute and follow orders and go forward as best you can, do what you can. Now, even from there, government is not really built to handle things like this very well. Government's built, go to war, they can do quite well, but to handle things like this that are somewhere in between, it's just not built for it. For example, politicians that service to something, they actually do something to fix it. Because if you do something to fix it, there's always to pay it. And so 9/11 Commission, what was the 9/11 Commission? 9/11 Commission was lawyers, professors, politicians. What's this blue ribbon 9/11 Commission? Well, they were. Every one of them came out of a bureaucracy. They ever served in a bureaucracy. That's all they knew was bureaucracy. And what did the 9/11 create? The commission, what did they order? Or recommend that we do everything they recommended, implemented. It created more bureaucracy. So now we have a Department of Homeland Security and all that. Now, necessarily anything wrong with those things. But what did we do as a result of 9/11? We created more bureaucracy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, bureaucracy doesn't do anything to stop terrorism. People out doing the stuff that know how to stop terrorism to be making the recommendations. And we didn't have one single career operations guy, not military, not law enforcement, not intelligence, not one career operations person on the 9/11 Commission. And I guarantee you, if we'd have put the same number of people in a room that was based on military operations, based on law enforcement operations, and based on intelligence operations, all of whom had direct year recommendations, would have been completely different and would have been effective. What they did was not changed in the war on terrorism since the 9/11 Commission came out with this list of bureaucrats. Nothing has changed. So that is enough kind of, to me, fine. And if they had done what that would be, you're not going to talk them out of it. You'd have to kill them.
Right.
There's just no other choice. So that would be politically damaging to a lot of people. So why should they do it when they can say, well, we did everything we could, followed all the recommendations. This was a blue ribbon panel. We've done everything we could do. So, and didn't care about fixing the problem, because fixing the problem creates problems for them. So that's it. We have these professional politicians run in the House every 2 years, on the Senate side every 6 years, and even the president every 4 years. So it's elections have that negative impact on us in the sense that it kind of paralyzes politicians when it comes to actually doing something. Let me give one more little example of this. Senator Cruz from Texas, hearings that we just had on the Hill with the heads of Twitter and Facebook and Google, saying, who the hell are you to decide, what the American people can see and not see? Who elected you? Now, Cruz is credited for my, talking tough there, and I liked what he said. But here's the question: to the left, and he talks top. What's going to happen? Well, let's say what's going to happen a month from now or 2 months from now? Is he going to come up with legislation to actually change things so Twitter is unable to have its bias decide what the American people can see or not see? Because if he did actually acted on it, that's going to have a lot of negative repercussions. There are going to be people that will be pissed at it. So did he stand up and talk tough? Or is he actually going to try to do something about it in the future? And while I like Senator Cruz, I think that what's going to happen, it's going to be talk tough and not doing anything, because he knows he needs to get reelected again. So, and he may have presidential aspirations too. So, getting into political, fights, they just don't view that as something that's good for them politically.
Yeah. Did you want to ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah. What did you think about election week, Mr. Johnson? The current political climate, possible election outcome, and what we might see or likely will see over the next 2 weeks or so.
Well, I may be wrong. The future is always very difficult to predict. Nobody's perfect at this. I personally think Trump is going to win handily, and by handily I mean by at least what he won by last time or more. And the factors why, I mean, there's a 15%, supposedly even now, a 15% undecided percentage within the voting population. And that's huge. I mean, it's very, very rare to have that be so big. Those people always break, statistically, they always break for the incumbent. So those people are going to be going over. We've also seen a number of things where a lot of people are predicting large swings, large compared to what it's been in the past with black vote, Hispanic vote, Jewish vote, and the young vote. Apparently, the youth have looked at these debates and the information that's out there, and they're saying to themselves, Trump wants to get everything going again. Biden wants to shut everything down again, and I'm tired of being locked in the house with a face mask on and not being able to go out. So apparently, there's a fairly large percentage of the that's even go for Trump. So I think if you take all of these factors together, particularly the black vote, which some people are predicting could be as high as 30%, where the Republican candidate usually would get 5 to 7% or something like that. So that nature would be disastrous for Biden and
Yeah.
Senate seats. So I think Trump's going to win, and on the heels of that, I think we've already seen a lot in the news about Antifa preparing for violence. They've had a number of arrests, catching them with weapons, and shipping in things, like the also bricks and things that they're forward positioning for riots. And I think we'll see Antifa backed by Black Lives Matter and some pretty good money out of the left, the Soros types, and a number of American leftists that have money. I think they'll pour money into it, and I think we'll have riots in every city or town where Antifa has the capability to do so.
Yeah, and could you? I've seen you before. I think you write for Military Times. I'm from Washington, and I've been working kind of that beat the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years. And you are you are recommending some kind of reform. I think it's going back to this operational and analysis division, and more emphasis on human intelligence development, like the old days, like the old, when you'd go down to the farm and do all that field work, that sort of thing.
Well, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and so, I mean, there may be, I'm not saying it needs to necessarily go back to precisely as it was before, but what it does need to do is concentrate on having an operational cadre. Covert action and espionage is not easy, and it takes practice and a cadre of people that reinforce it. The older ones help the younger ones along, the less experienced along, and so they gain experience and get better and better, and you have a lot of lessons learned, and it lets you adjust your training as you learn and develop. And after the CIA was formed in the 50s following World War II, the cadre of people that went into the CIA were largely OSS, but even more number-wise, even more came out of the Navy. The Navy learned a great deal about intelligence and probably shortened by a great deal the war in the Pacific theater based on intelligence victories. So out of those lessons learned, we took all of that and built upon it. And beginning in the 50s, we took all those lessons, and whenever there was a disaster of one sort or another, we learned from it, and then trained to be able to operate against it, and got to the point where we could do pretty much anything in the world, anywhere, including in very difficult operating environments, like where you were getting 24/7 surveillance by, take Moscow and Beijing and places like that. So we'd gotten to the point where we were operationally just so capable and knew so well how all this worked that we could pretty much, like I say, do almost anything anywhere. And that requires a dedicated cadre of people that they make a career out of it, and you got to bring in the right people and nurture those capabilities along. Now, how that's achieved, like I say, there's various ways I think that could be done. Doing it the way it was traditionally done would be fine too, and that's probably the easiest thing to do because everybody would know what it is and could go get it if it needed to be tweaked along the way. Great. The problem now, like I said, is, and let me just give you an example. And nobody ever likes to talk about the disasters, but you might remember the bombing in Coast, and we had, I think it was 7 people killed by the bomb blast, another 7 behind them wounded. And what the operation was it was on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and we were going to have this guy, a reporting source, going to come in and give us the location of Osama bin Laden. So it was pre his death, and so that guy came in, walked into the middle of a semicircle waiting. They were greeting him like kind of like a visiting academic, genius sort of guy or something that had arrived. And so he's being greeted in a semicircle. The inner circle included the chief of base and Coast and other people. And then there was another semicircle behind them of people that were also associated with the operation. The guy walked into the middle of it, hit the plunger, and blew himself up and killed those 7 people. Now, the person in charge of that, very nice woman, no criticism of her whatsoever. She bravely, ended up giving her life for her country, but she was an analyst. And there was not one single person at that operation that was a trained case officer. There were people in case officer positions as an operations officer, but they were not trained operations officer. Now, I can just tell you, case officer 101 is you just don't let some guy you haven't searched like that walk into the middle of the group. You just don't do stuff like that. Everybody's trained to that. Military, everybody's trained. You search the guy first, then you let him come in and talk to him. But they didn't do that. So whose fault was that? That was not that young lady's fault, that she was sent out to be chief of base to go after Osama bin Laden. It was not her fault. She was an analyst, and she wasn't prepared or trained, nor did she necessarily, I don't know her personally, but this is guessing on my part, but I doubt she was mentally the right type of person to look at the world that way. She was an academic, probably in background and her way of thinking, and not the street smart kind, the academic kind. And that's 2 separate types of people, and no slur on anyone out of that. I mean, the academic ones are the ones generally with the brains of the group, and the street smart ones aren't necessarily smart. But nevertheless, the street smart guys that have all the training, that know all this stuff, would not have been killed like that, and none of those other people would have been killed like that. And that's just a perfect example in a nutshell of what's wrong with management at the CIA and why their decisions get people killed, have gotten a lot of people killed, and are getting people killed all the time now. They're just not making good decisions, and it's because you don't have that professional cadre anymore, and that has to be returned. How it's done, like I said, I don't really particularly care as long as it's done.
And I wanted to ask Mr. Johnson if you are familiar with Robert David Steele's work, and what do you think on his work on the Zionists and a particular country in the Middle East?
Not familiar with this work.
Okay. Yeah, a more general question would be, what do you think of our intelligence relationship with the Mossad?
Well, that's an interesting question. I term those, generally speaking, liaison relationships. It's liaison relationships are a funny, quirky thing that has many ups and downs. They're far from perfect at any time. So I guess I would answer this way. Has our relationship with Mossad been seamless and perfect, and do we agree on everything? Absolutely not. There are problems. Israel is interested in Israel primarily, and the United States, generally speaking, is interested in the United States primarily, and sometimes those things diverge. We've got a guy sitting in prison right now that the Mossad recruited that was a spy for them in the United States here, reporting information back to him. So, I mean, it's It's robust, good, far more positive than negative, but and that's basically the measurement you take. With any relationship of that nature, whether it's inside or outside of intelligence circles, that's still basically it. Is it a net positive, or dial back the relationship with people? If it's a net positive, then you try to dial it up as much as you can. And I would say that's it with the United States and Israel for intelligence relationship, the liaison relationship between the services. And I think it basically boils down that everyone pretty much recognizes that the United States is better than Israel in that region. If they were to be gone, that would make our national security worse. So are all very solid. So our relationship is and will remain solid with Israel. Now, the relationship is quite good. I understand.
I had a quick question about this sort of, it seems like we just had a lot of folks in the intelligence agencies that just seem to be anti-Trump, and Trump is kind of surrounded, it seems at times, a lot of the people who were the station chiefs, let's say in London, were present during the Steele dossier and promoted or promulgated the idea that this was fact, and 17 intelligence agencies all say that the Russians were involved in trying to take down Trump, etc. And of course, this is all not proven not to be true with the various reports that we've now done in the agency and the agency review. So can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but Trump just seems surrounded at times, and it seems like all 17 agencies against him. Things changed a little bit with Ratcliffe, I think, and Grinnell being ODNIs, but up until then, it just seemed like it was 17 on 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's an accurate analysis. The problem, this is often talked about. I'm certainly not the only one to point this out, but when President Trump got elected, he did not have that large cadre of people that had been around him and worked in his campaigns and all of that, and so it built up large numbers of people that he could rely upon. And so he ended up relying on other people, and those other people, generally speaking, were drawn from the Republican that I call them rhinos. I mean, for me, President Bush and the people around him are essentially rhino or what. But I mean, if you'll allow me just to call them generically rhinos, that's who he drew from. And so a lot of the people around him were intently anti-Trump, and they joined up with all of the leftover Obama people, which Obama did a lot of things to a lot of people that had been political appointees. He switched them over before he left into career positions, so they were no longer political appointees and then could be fired. So there was this huge body of Obama holdovers and a huge body of that President Trump elected for essentially they were Trumpers. And this guy that had been the chief of staff at DHS that wrote op-ed and all of that now identifies himself. He's a perfect example of that. So, Hogan and that's what he surrounded himself with, unfortunately. Now I can guarantee you that about a year ago, he started putting all these pieces together and started going in and looking and saying, okay, that guy screwed me over. Who put him?
Yeah, I think
all of that got, he started putting all of that together, and you began to see the Grinnell and the Director of National Intelligence, and now chief of staff, and these things. He's drawing in people that he knows are political allies that he can count on. They're not sycophants; they're political allies, which is what he needs. That by itself, I think, is a very important transition. All of which has taken place during the past year. So, going forward, assuming my prediction is right and Trump wins, which going to bet any money on it, but I nevertheless think that's what's going to happen. He made reference to a certain person that had been chief of station in London, who's the current director of the CIA, and apparently, this is the rumors that are out there, and it was reported on a little bit. No matter who wins, shortly after the election.
No, I'm sorry, we missed that.
Personally,
We missed that piece. Are you saying that she looked the other way? It seemed like she looked the other way on the intelligence miss on the Steele dossier. Is that what you said?
no. I mean, I would say if she's a very close lieutenant of
Brennan?
from everything seen, it is very closely coordinated, mainly by John. I would say I've made this comment before. Every time something new comes up, it points back to me. Associated with John Brennan. During that period of time, you would be very high on my list of stuff. And knowing that you were trying to attack then candidate Trump and later president, legal, of course. So I know this for a fact. She was sent back. That's a little unusual. She was handpicked to go there by John Brennan. Now, that's a little unusual. So, just looking at these things and adding them all up, to me, it looks like Gina Haspel. I've had a couple of people come to me with lists of people they think are going to be indicted, and I don't have any names out of the CIA, but
Hey, Mr. Johnson.
yes.
Hey, we're kind of losing you here a bit, but we've got about an hour here, so I just wanted to thank you, and I think we should probably wrap up just because of connection issues, and hopefully we can do this.
Let's reschedule.
Yeah, sometime next week we can get you on video.
Because I think,
Sure. Yeah, I apologize. The weather's been filling the air, so.
yeah, I think you were saying that there was more than looking the other way with Gina Haspel, which is huge news. I mean, you're almost saying co-conspirator there, I think, and that is, I know that you want to stop short of that, but you know, I think Brennan launched a counterintelligence operation on Trump there, and Haspel was right there in the middle of it in London. So you wonder how she could then become the director. You know, it's just very hard to believe.
I think head of the going to go. Our director is going to go. I think
Wow.
30 to 60 days
But,
of election, assuming Trump wins.
Could we have you just repeat that last bit that you said about Gina Haspel, because unfortunately we missed that.
I was saying that, and Gina Haspel has apparently said that she's going to retire no matter who wins the presidential election.
Okay.
And
wow. That would be a
that,
huge
to me,
thing. Yeah.
makes me more suspicious rather than less, but we'll see how that plays out.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked you to repeat that. We definitely want you to come back, because I think we want to drill into what does the CIA look like if Trump wins? What does it look like if Trump loses and Biden wins? And that's only 3 days away. Maybe we'll talk to him after the election.
Yeah, can we talk sometime next week, Mr. Johnson? I know you said you're busy on election day.
Yes, yeah, I am. I'm doing a live streaming program of that, kind of analyzing it for Canadians. I do quite a little bit in Canada, and it's a foreign country in their elections. They wanted an American to kind of chime in as they go through the process of watching the election. So it should be a lot of fun. I'll be going live in the evening. But yeah, next week will be fine after the election. I'm happy to come back whenever we can make it work, and hopefully I'll have better communications.
Well, and I saw you're part Cherokee, as am I, and of course, Addie is half, so but not Cherokee. So you got to support the Cherokees, okay? When you come back, please.
Yeah, absolutely, happy to.
How much are you, by the way? What's your how much?
Like an eighth.
An eighth, yeah, it's like me, yeah. Well, that's great. I saw that, and I just thought it was an interesting piece. I'd gone back to see the Trail of Tears and all that, and done that whole thing. So I didn't know if that.
My great grandparents were forced march out of the Carolinas on the Trail of Tears,
Yeah.
and the tribe has done some nice stuff just lately, and they've got beautiful grave markers noting that my great grandmother, she's got it, was that my grandfather was buried someplace else, but noting that she was a survivor of the Trail of Tears. She made it all the way through to the end and lived out her life.
Wow, what a story. Well, we want to get back to that as well, and good luck on your Canadian broadcast, and we'll hopefully we won't have electrical storms next time, and we'll see you back here again.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you very much. Take care.
Good night.
Well, that was a good interview, minus the technical interruptions. Obviously, there's a hurricane going on the East Coast in the Maryland, D.C. region. So that's why we were having trouble with the internet. As far as the phone, who's to say why that was going in and out, but that was unfortunate. However, we did get a pretty good interview out of Mr. Johnson tonight, despite the challenges, and we are going to have him on again next week, post Tuesday. So
yeah, and I just want to say of what did get through, and I admit some great stuff didn't. Just to have somebody from the CIA say that Trump's surrounded and that Haspel's going to go makes me 100% more hopeful about the next administration if Trump does win. I think what he said about the black vote and the Hispanic vote being a swing, that unexpected swing, is also really great analysis. And
yeah, I think he's probably right with that.
Yeah, and then I talked a lot about this 2 or 3 years ago with I talked a lot about Valerie Plame and how she kind of worked all these guys in NATO and so forth, and really worked the Eastern European thing, and then Africa with anti-nuke and Iran. And that is a lost art, I do believe, and I think he's right on the money there. So there's a whole bunch of things I want to talk to him more about when we get there.
Obviously, he's very high up on the CIA, or he probably would have told us where he worked. So it just goes to show you he's good interviewee to have, I think. Yeah,
it was really great. Well, Eddie, thanks for letting me jump on your.
Yeah, I didn't know this was going to happen today. I emailed him. I think it was last night, and then he's like, "Let's go tonight if we can." So it works out like that sometimes, and really appreciative to Mr. Johnson for the interview this evening, and thanks to George Webb for being a great reporter. Oh wait, that's what you do.
That's right. Well, this is one area where I feel like I've read some books and know something, so that's good. And I can't wait to have him back and learn more about him.
Awesome.
Thanks, Eddie.
So we'll see you, everybody, tomorrow. And I hope everyone enjoyed this. I want to say thank you to BEA27 for the super chat.
Hey, we got a super chat. We got a super chat.
Very first Entropy super chat was this evening from Bay27.
Have we ever got a regular super chat? I guess we can't until we get.
No. Well, I did a few times.
Oh, you have 2,500. Yeah.
Yeah, but back when I was monetized, but again, I haven't seen any of that money. So if you did give me a super chat back when I was monetized, I haven't seen any of it. But that's where Entropy comes in. That's where brand new tube comes in. GoFundMe, and we're gonna get a PO box soon so people can mail checks if they prefer to do that. Neighborhood News Studio is up and running. It's our new channel. I will put the link in the description box. Otherwise, nnhour.com is also in the description box as well. I'd encourage people to go and give Mr. Johnson a subscription and check out his website.
Subscribe to Neighborhood News Studio. hit that right in your Google search box, bang, and then subscribe. We want to get back to 1,000 so that we also can live stream again with some decent cameras rather than these older ones. So thank you again, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, George, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Stay frosty, folks.